Masechet Pesahim, on page 32. We're going to be talking all about Terumah today and the violation of Yisrael eating Terumah that belongs to a Kohen. We're going to see something very interesting, which is that Terumah actually has a double aspect. Number one, a monetary aspect, that Terumah belongs to the Kohen and someone else taking it is stealing. But also it's holy, so someone who takes it is desecrating. So the main pasuk we have is here from Vayikra Kafbet, Ve'ish ki ochal kodesh bishkaga, Ve'yasav chamishito alav Tanna Kohen et hakodesh. Someone who eats something that is sacred has to pay back what he took and plus add a fifth. By a fifth, we mean 25%, a fifth of the total amount that he ends up paying. So you see that fine. And this is not only paying back monetarily, but also an atonement for what he did. Important difference between atonement and stealing is that if it's atonement, then you would pay back if you did it by mistake, bishogeg. Here we'll see as we see in this Mishnah. Okay, so the Mishnah says, Ha'ochel terumah, terumat chametz ba'pesach. So on Pesach, someone ate terumah. So there he's violating two things, right? Eating chametz ba'pesach and eating terumah that belongs to a Kohen. Beshogeg meshalem keren v'chomesh. B'mezid patur mitashlumin u'midimei aisim. We have a paradox. If he does it unwittingly, he doesn't realize that it's terumah, doesn't realize it's chametz, then he pays the amount plus the penalty of a fifth. If he does it on purpose, he does not have to pay for the terumah, nor does he even have to pay for its monetary value in wood. In other words, even if it was terumah teme'ah, which cannot be eaten by Kohen, he can still use it, he can still burn it. So he wouldn't even have to pay the amount as burning material. It doesn't have to pay anything. So let's try to figure out why this is. What's with this paradox? So if he does it unwittingly, then he does pay. The reason is because this is an atonement for him. Just like sacrifices in general are only brought for someone, a chatat is only brought for someone who sins by mistake. I can't go and sin on purpose and say, oh, I'll just bring a korban and then I'll be okay. It's only atoned for something that's done by mistake. And so so he did it by mistake, so he pays. And he's not chayav anything because of chametz, because he did it by mistake. So he's not going to get karet. Only if you do something if you eat chametz on purpose, then that punishment would be karet. So he only gets that one payment. If he does it on purpose, however, then he does not pay anything at all. The reason is because we'll see in this chart, right? So now he's paying simply as a thief. He doesn't get to pay as an atonement, right? Because he did it on purpose. He still does have to pay back what he stole. However, chametz on Pesach has no value, because what are you going to do with it? It can't be bought. It can't be sold. No Jew can benefit from it. And so that chametz yon has no market. It has no market, has no market value. So if you steal something that's worth zero, you don't have to pay anything back. Okay, that's one reason. We're going to see another reason later in the Mishnah, later in the Gemara, which is that if you eat chametz on purpose, you're chayav karet. And if you're chayav karet, then that's a higher, bigger punishment. So then you don't have to pay anything because paying something would be a lesser punishment. So even if it did have value. All right, we'll see that as we go along. All right, that's the Mishnah. What we're going to ask now is delve into what's the smallest, when you pay back terumah, do you have to pay back the value of the terumah or the volume of what you stole? Let's say the value changes. It goes up, it goes down. What will be the law? And that gets into the nature of, is it stealing or is it desecrating? And then we'll get into what's the minimum amount of terumah that you eat that would require the person to be chayav to pay back the amount plus the fifth. All right, that's the two main topics. Okay, so we start with a quote from a Mishnah in Masechet Terumah that says Tanna Kamma. This is a Mishnah over there. Usually a Mishnah is introduced by the word Tanan, meaning we taught. This is our Mishnah. It's interesting that there is no Talmud Bavli on Masechet Terumot. So some people have wondered in the past, did there used to be a Masechet Bavli for a commentary on Masechet on Zeraim, and it was lost? Yaakov Zusman, in his famous dissertation, concluded that no, there never was a Bavli there. And one of the things he does is goes through different sugyot that are found in other places. For example, this one. This is quotes Mishnah Terumah that has a whole discussion about that Mishnah Terumah. So was this possibly an original sugya from that lost Masechet or not? He concludes no. But anyway, it's good to have a Bavli commentary on something in Terumah. All right, so the Mishnah there says, "Ha'ochel terumah b'shogeg mishalem keren v'chomesh." If you, and this is not talking about on Pesach, just anyone who eats terumah by mistake, he pays that much and the fine. Echad ha'ochel v'echad ha'shoteh v'echad ha'sach echad terumah temeah v'echad terumah tehora mishalem chomesh v'chumsha dechumsha. So it doesn't matter whether he ate it or drank it or anointed himself with it. And it doesn't matter if it's terumah impure or pure. If it's pure, then the Kohen could have eaten it. If it's impure, the Kohen could have used it for other things. You could have used it for to light a candle, a lamp. And that doesn't matter. You still have to pay the amount plus a fifth. And let's say he had that fifth ready to give to the Kohen, and he stole that. Right. So in other words, that if he had stole 100 and he's going to pay back now 125, and then he takes and uses that produce that he was going to give back to the Kohen, that itself has a status of terumah, and then he would have to add another fifth to the fifth that he was supposed to give. All right, that's all the Mishnah. Now we have a question. When he does pay back, is it based on midah, based on the volume of what he stole, or based on the value, the monetary value of what he stole? Well, so it could go both ways. It could go up, it could go down. Right? If I break into your brokerage account and steal stock, one share of Amazon, and then tomorrow it goes down to 1,000 from 3,000, I still have to pay back 3,000. Right? That's the law of Gazlan. A thief in general has to pay the value of the time that he stole it. So how about here? If at the time I stole, let's say I stole some olives, and at the time it was worth 4 zuz, and then the olive market went down the next afterwards, and now it's only worth 1 zuz. The Yisrael who stole certainly has to pay the higher amount, because it's not lesser than a thief. If a thief has to pay the amount that when he stole, then this guy is worse than a thief because he stole and committed sacrilege. So that's for sure. That's how we know that general rule for a thief. So if the price goes down, he would have to pay the higher price. The question is, what about the opposite? He stole some grapes, and then they were worth 1 zuz. And next day, some wine seller came to town, and he needs those specific grapes, and now they're worth 4 zuz. Can I simply pay back the same amount that I stole? And that's better for the Yisrael to pay back. I took this measure, I'm giving back the same amount, same measure. Or does he, the first one would be worse, right, for him. If I stole this volume of grapes and I have to give back the same volume, but when I give it back, I have to pay 4 zuz to get them. So I'm going to have to pay back more than what I stole, same amount of volume, but higher monetary value. Or does it go by the monetary value? I stole 1 zuz of grapes, so I give back 1 zuz, and if grapes are more expensive, then I'll give back a quarter of the grapes, right? So that is the question. So we're going to attempt to answer it. We're going to have a proof for volume from a Braita, another proof that it goes by volume from our Mishnah. Both of those proofs are going to be rejected. And then we're going to show that this question is actually dependent on a Tannaitic dispute between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yohanan ben Nuri. That's what we'll see. Okay, so here's the first attempt at an answer. Amar Rav Yosef, Tashema, Achal gerogrot v'shilem lo temarim. Tavo alav beracha. Someone stole figs that were terumah, and he paid back with dates. Dates are more expensive than figs. So it's good. He did right. Have a blessing that he gave back more. Okay, that's what the source says. That's what the Braita says. Now let's analyze it. If it's based on volume, then they understand he stole a pound of, or not volume, should be volume. If he stole what's the volume? Gallon of figs and gave back that gallon of dates, then wonderful. He gave back something that's much more expensive. What he stole was only worth 1 zuz, and now it's worth 4 zuz what he gave back because it's dates. That makes sense. So this proves volume. But if it's based on monetary value, then what's the difference? I stole a zuz worth of figs. I paid back a zuz worth of dates. That's all the same thing. So I didn't do anything good. So that seems to be a proof for volume. But we reject that proof. The reason why, it actually is the same monetary value, but still figs are harder to sell. People don't want figs so much, but buyers jump at an opportunity to buy dates, even if it's the same amount. Like if I have the same monetary value in the Hondas or in Teslas, still you'd rather have Teslas. Much easier to sell a Tesla, right? Everybody's looking to buy one, and so therefore it's still a better commodity, even if it's the same price. All right, so we reject that proof. Second proof that is from volume is from our Mishnah in Pesahim. Tenan ha'ochel terumat chametz ba'Pesach b'shogeg meshalem keren ba'chomesh. Right, so if by mistake I eat this terumah that is also chametz on Pesach, I pay. If it goes by volume, then that makes sense that I should pay what I stole. Right, I took a se'ah of dates. This is chametz. I took a se'ah of wheat, and so I'll pay back a se'ah of wheat, of dough. So I'm paying back the same thing I stole. But if it goes by monetary value, then chametz on Pesach has no monetary value, right? You had some bread that was terumah. I went and ate it, but that bread has no market value. And so therefore, I should not pay back anything. So the fact that our Mishnah says I do pay back an amount, that means it goes by volume. All right, that seems to be a good proof, but not necessarily a proof. In there is a minority opinion, if remember we saw a few dapim ago, that of Rabbi Yosef HaGalili. He's the same rabbi that ate chicken cheeseburgers in his city, and so he permitted the use of chametz on Pesach. He said you can't eat it, but you are allowed to sell it, anoint it, burn it in your lamp. You could use it, and therefore, according to Rabbi Yosef HaGalili, chametz does have monetary value. And so if we just assume that this Mishnah, our Mishnah, is the minority opinion of Rabbi Yosef HaGalili, then it could make sense even according to the opinion that it goes by value and not volume. Okay, but let's see if this follows through. If I did it on purpose, if I ate this, I knew it was terumah, I knew it was chametz, and I ate it anyway, then I do not pay. Why? Why shouldn't I pay? I did it on purpose, so I'm a thief, right? So even if I can't get atonement, I do still have to pay back the amount. And Rabbi Yosef HaGalili says it is in fact worth something, so I should have to pay that amount back. So you see that this must be volume. It doesn't work. Well, it could still work according to the one who says it's about value. Rabbi Nechonya ben Akana de Tanya. Rabbi Nechonya ben Akana haya oseh et Yom Kippurim keshabbat letashlumin. Okay, Rabbi Nechonya we met before. He's the one that applies kim leb de Rabba Mineh. That principle that says if you have 2 punishments, you only get the stricter one. Most people apply that only if it's a chayav mitah, bidei adam, and something else. Like if I light your house on fire on Shabbat. So I lit a fire, that's chayav mitah. I also owe you a house. So therefore, I'm only chayav mita. I don't have to pay for your house. Most people apply that only for chayav mita, not for karet. So if you do it on Yom Kippur, then you would have to actually pay. Except Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana, he says that Kim Lebed Abamine applies also to karet plus monetary, and therefore, in this case, because I ate chametz on purpose, bemezid, therefore chayav karet. So yes, true, I would have to pay you as well, but I don't have to pay. I would have to pay you, but since it's chayav karet trumps, and I only am chayav karet, I don't have to pay. And so that could be the explanation of the Mishnah. So it's possible that it's a volume or its value. It can go either way. All right. So after the two attempted proofs, we're actually going to show that there's proof for both opinions. Both have support in the Tannaitic layers. So we're going to see now two baraitot. The first one is a tosefta. The second one a baraita. They're very similar in their conversations. So, but there is a special important difference between them also. All right. So let's see. Kitanae. האוכל תרומת חמץ בפסח פטור מן התשלומים ומדמי העצים דברי רבי עקיבא. So according to Rabbi Akiva, someone who eats chametz on terumah that's chametz on Pesach on purpose, he doesn't say on purpose, but that's what it has to be, he does not have to pay. That was the opinion of our Mishnah. So this is Rabbi Akiva is the same as our Stam Mishnah. However, Rabbi Yohanan ben Nuri, his colleague, mechayev, he says you do have to pay. No, so we see a subject of machloket here. Now, what's it all about? We have a conversation. It says, what benefit does he have from it? What do you mean pay? Pay what? There's no market value. So what would he pay for? Amar lo Rabbi Yohanan ben Nuri Rabbi Akiva, Mahana ayesh lo ochel terumat teme'ah b'sh'ar kol yimot hashana shemishalem. How about the rest of the year? If there's terumah that's tameh, and so the kohen cannot eat it. So also that kohen cannot benefit, doesn't have benefit from it, and yet he has to pay. So I'll compare chametz on Pesach, terumah that's chametz on Pesach, to terumah that's tameh all year round. And just like all year round you have to pay, so too here I think you have to pay. Rabbi Akiva says no, not the same. Amar lo im amarta beterumah teme'ah b'shar yimot hashana sh'af al pi she'en lo ba heter achila yesh lo ba heter hasaka. No, it's not. You can't compare the two. If I have terumah that's impure all year round, it's true the kohen cannot eat it, but he can burn it for light or for heat. So it's worth has a value, has a market value, and that's why he has to pay. But chametz, you cannot derive any benefit at all. So that's why Rabbi Akiva says. That's why I say he doesn't have to pay. It's actually more like if you have terumah made out of berries and grapes that became tameh. So you can't eat it, you can't burn them because then it's not burning material, and so they're completely useless. That's what the chametz would be like, and it has no monetary value. Okay, so that's the first machloket. The Tosefta adds one more point that's not immediately relevant for us. All this applies only when I take, let's say I'm making dough, I'm making masa. And so while I'm doing, I take some terumah, some dough, and I say this will be terumah for the kohen. At the time that I separate it, it's not chametz. I leave it on the side, it becomes chametz. That is considered actual terumah. But if I have actual bread around that's chametz, and I say, oh, this is going to be terumah, it's no good, because when you donate something as terumah, it has to be something that is worthy of giving, and this thing is worthless because it's already chametz. So that's the point. Okay, so what we see here is that the one opinion in our Mishnah is actually subject to a machloket, and we see the reason why they go back and forth. Rabbi Akiva considers this as having no value, and Rabbi Yohanan ben Nuri argues otherwise. Okay, we'll see the relevance for us, but first we're going to see a second baraita that's very similar. Tanya idach. If someone steals, takes terumah, he has to give to the kohen the holy thing which he took. You have to give them something that is worthy of being kodesh, of being terumah. And this comes to exclude someone who eats terumah that's chametz, because that person will be patur, because what's he going to give back? He didn't. It's not nothing. There's nothing of value here. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Okay, so Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says agrees with Rabbi Akiva as before, and with our Stam Mishnah. However, Rabbi Elazar chisma mechayev. Okay, he says chayav like Rabbi Yohanan ben Nuri, but we're going to see for a slightly different reason. Amar lo Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Elazar chisma v'chimahana yesh lo ba. Says what? There's no monetary value. The kohen cannot get any benefit from it, and so I stole something that's worthless for him, so I don't have to pay anything back. Amar Rabbi Elazar chisma Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov v'chimahana yesh lo laochel terumah teme'ah b'shar yemot hashana shemeshalem. So same comparison. He says if terumah the rest of the year, not chametz, but that's tameh, and so the kohen can't eat it. So the kohen, what value does it have for the kohen? Amar lo im amarta b'terumah teme'ah b'shar yemot hashana she'af al pi she'en lo ba heter achila yesh bo heter hasaka. Tomar bezo she'en lo ba lo heter achila ve'lo heter hasaka. So right, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says back. By the way, Eliezer ben Yaakov is a fourth generation. He's a student of Rabbi Akiva. So he's saying the same thing back. He says, no, you can't compare the two. Terumah teme'ah, the kohen does have value. The kohen can use it for light and heat by burning it. Not chametz, can't use it for anything. And here's the key difference. So now Rabbi Elazar Chasma says, Amar lo af bezo yesh lo ba heter hasaka shim rasa kohen merisa lifnei kalbo or masika tachat tavshilo. Oh, the kohen can take that chametz on Terumat chametz on Pesach, and he can give it to his dog, or he can burn it under his food to cook. You could use it as fuel. So we see here is that Rabbi Elazar Chasma follows the opinion of Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, who said you can't eat chametz, but you can derive benefit from chametz. Okay, so those are the two. And now what we're trying to get to is, what one's asking, is terumah, when a person who takes terumah pays back, does he pay back volume or value? We're going to try to figure it out from here. Amar Abaye, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yohanan ben Nuri, Kulehu sivira lehu chametz b'Pesach asur b'hana'ah. All the first three opinions agree that you're not allowed to derive benefit from chametz on Pesach. Only the last opinion, right? Rabbi Elazar Chasma said, followed Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, said you can derive benefit. So what are they arguing about if they all agree about that there's no benefit? So there's no value. According to Rabbi Akiva, we follow the one who steals chametz has to pay back the monetary value. And since there is no monetary value of chametz on Pesach, he pays back 0. Whereas his colleague, his disputant, Rabbi Yohanan ben Nuri, he has to pay back according to the value measure. And therefore, if he stole a se'ah of bread, he's going to have to pay back a se'ah of bread. Even though it's no value, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the value is. The value could be 0, but he still has to pay it back. And so there you go. We had this law question. We brought two sources before. We couldn't answer it. Actually, it's a machloket Tanaim. And so this is very good. And so now the Gemara is upset about this. It says peshita. See, you can't make the Gemara happy. If you bring a proof that it rejects, it says, that's no good. If you bring a good proof that says, obviously, right? Okay. This is a compliment. You know, if someone, if I have a chidush and someone says, obviously, that's what the pasuk meant. Okay, good. I said something that at least you're convinced. Okay, but why do you have to even bother telling me this if it's so simple? So what would I have thought? Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri namek Rabbi Akiva sibira le dama lefi damim mishalem. I might have thought that actually Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, who says you do have to pay when you eat chametz terumah on purpose on Pesach, he says you do have to pay. And I might have thought that he actually agrees with Rabbi Akiva that it goes by the value. I might have thought that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri in the first Tosefta, that he agrees with Rabbi Eliezer Chasma in the second baraita, and that the reason why he says he does have to pay is because he thinks that Kohen can derive benefit. Anyone can derive benefit from Chametz on Pesach, like Rabbi Yosei Galili, right? But that was only the reasoning that was mentioned in the second baraita. The first baraita did not say anything like that. Well, I might have thought it's the same, and that's why it comes to teach. No, he could not agree with the reasoning of Rabbi Eliezer Chasma, but rather his own reasoning. The reason why Rabbi Yohanan ben Nuri said that someone who steals chametz on Pesach, that's terumah, on purpose, is because, he says, you follow the value measurement, and even though it's of zero value, you still have to pay back that value. Okay, good. Now we wonder about this. You brought up the never happy, right? You explained why it's not peshita, right? What I might have thought. But now that you mentioned that, actually, why not? Why don't you say that reasoning against the volume and say that everyone agrees that it goes by the value? Maybe indeed he does agree with Rabbi Yosei Galili. No, if that's what he thought, if Rabbi Yohanan ben Nuri really thought that you can derive benefit from chametz on Pesach, then he should have said that, like Rabbi Eliezer Chasma does in the second baraita. But the fact that he doesn't say that shows that that's not his reasoning. Okay, very good. So with that, we can now go to the next section, which is about minimum amounts for everything in the Torah has a minimum amount. If I eat less than a certain amount of pig, usually kizayit is for most things that have to do with eating, then I don't deserve a punishment. So what would be the minimum amount if I ate terumah as a non-kohen that I would have to pay the time and a fifth? So let's see. The Braita here says Tanu Rabbanan. Ha'ochel kezayit terumah meshalem keren v'chomesh. If I eat kezayit, that's the minimum, then I have to pay. Under a kezayit, no, I don't have to pay. That's the Tanna Kamma. Abba Shaul omer ad sheyehe bo shaveh perutah. The amount, it's not a kezayit, which is actually a value measurement, but rather the amount of its worth. It has to be a perutah's worth. A perutah's worth is the smallest possible denomination. So anything less has to do with stealing, right? The difference between them seems to be related to whether it's a sort of eating, and I'm eating something that is considered holy, that I'm not allowed, or is it a matter of stealing? In general, if I steal something that's less than the perutah, like let's say you have a box of jelly beans, you have 200 jelly beans you bought for $1. So each jelly bean is worth 0.5 cent. If I go and steal one jelly bean, you take me to court, right? I have to pay. Okay, what am I going to pay? 0.5 penny? How can I pay 0.5 penny? It's impossible. So therefore, anything less than a perutah, I don't have to pay. If I steal anything less than perutah, I don't have to pay anything at all. So that's what Abba Shaul is applying here to Terumah. All right, what's the source? My Tama de Tanna Kamma, Amar Kera v'ish ki yochal kodesh bishkaga v'achila bechazayit. So Pasuk says, if someone eats kodesh, right, by mistake, so that has to do with eating. How do you define eating? Eating means a kezayit. So that seems very clear. How about Abba Shaul? Abba Shaul, my Tama, Amar Kera v'natan. Right, this is the Pasuk we mentioned before here. If someone eats kodesh, then he has to add a fifth, v'natan. He has to give that to the Kohen. So if you're giving something, and netina pachot mishaveh perutah, it's impossible to give anything that's less than the perutah, a value. Okay, v'idach nameh. Now, Abba Shaul, I like your pasuk, but what are you going to do with the pasuk, the word achi ki yochal? This has something to do with eating. Haketiv yochal. Ahu perat lemazik hu de'ata. Oh, yochal is coming to exclude someone who's damaged. If I just go and damage your terumah, but I don't derive benefit from it, I just destroy it, then I don't have to pay. Only if I eat it, then I have to pay. But that doesn't define the minimal amount. That just defines the way that I consume it. Okay, but Tanna Kamma haketiv natan. Fine. What are you going to do with the word natan? Use Tanna Kamma says it's a kezayit. So the word natan means that it has to be something that is givable, something that's worth some amount of money, and that would exclude terumah that's chametz on Pesach, which has no monetary value, and so that would not have to be paid. In printed editions, it's these words are in parentheses. Actually, in all manuscripts, these words are there. And in the original, the first printing, also these words were there. Marshal in the 1500s made many emendations and took this out for some reason, but it's clear from all the manuscripts that it belongs there. All right, good. So now that we saw that machloket, let's see some further discussion about it. So we have Tanna Kamma. Tanna Kamma generally introduces a Tosefta. In this case, this is actually a Mishnah in Masechet Terumah. Yet no manuscript says Tanan here. So sometimes, these keywords are not 100% consistent. Okay, so this is a Mishnah that says, Ha'ochel terumah b'chot mikazait meshalem et hakeren ve'eno meshalem et hachomesh. Someone eats terumah that belongs to a kohen, and he eats less than a kazait. So he pays the amount that he stole, but does not have to add the fine of a fifth. Okay, that's what the Mishnah says. Now, we're going to wonder, Hechidami, what kind of case is this? If the amount that I ate, yes, it was less than a kazait, and it was less than the value of a perutah. Could go either way, right? Perutah, it could be less than a kazait and more than the perutah. It could be less than a perutah and more than a kazait, right? Just depending on what exactly you're eating and how much the market value is. So if it's also not worth a perutah, I can't pay anything. Anything less than the perutah is unpayable. So it can't be talking about that. If it is worth a perutah, so then I should pay, right? Why aren't I paying? So so therefore we see that actually it is worth a perutah. But the thing is here, since I had less than a kazait, that's why I don't pay the fine. Oh, so whose opinion is this? This is Tanna Kamma, who says it goes by kazait. If you have a kazait, then you pay the amount plus the fine. If it's less than the kazait, that's what we said here, then you still pay the amount because you stole it, but you don't pay the fine. Okay, so now this whole discussion, the rabbis repeated before Rav Papa. Amru Rabbanan kamed Rav Papa, and they said, Ha delak Abba Shaul, Dik Abba Shaul, Ha'amar kevan sheyesh ba shaveh perutah, af al gav delet ba kazait. So he says this must be like Tanna Kamma, that's what we just said, and it rejects Abba Shaul, because Abba Shaul says if there's a shaveh perutah, if it's worth a perutah, even if there's no kazait, then he still has to pay the amount plus the fifth fine. All right, this seems to be a logical conclusion. And that's what the rabbi said to Rav Papa. However, Rav Papa did not agree. Amar lo Rav Papa, afilu tem Abba Shaul tarte ba'eh. No, I can fit this Mishnah. You don't want a Mishnah to be only like one opinion, not the other. I can fit it. And I could say Abba Shaul requires both and, not either or. He, in order to pay a fifth, the time and a fifth he needs is actually the most lenient. It has to be the kezait worth of volume, and it has to be worth at least a perutah. And so in the Mishnah's case here, it was even if it was worth a perutah, but he ate less than a kezait, and that's why. But really, he could agree to it. Okay, so now we're going to try to analyze what is Abba Shaul's actual opinion. Until now, we were assuming that Abba Shaul says if it's worth a perutah, you have to pay the fine. That's the only criteria. Now the Papa suggesting that has to be both pay shaveh perutah and at least a kezait. Did he really say that? We're going to end up saying no, he didn't. Abba Shaul tarte veha tenan. Okay, this we say Tanan. Tanan usually introduces a Mishnah. In this case, it's not a Mishnah, but a Tosefta. And in fact, it's only in printed editions that it says Tanan. I have a nice chart here. Here's a chart of all the manuscripts, and you see it says Tanan in the Vilna and the first printed edition in Venice, and also in the Munich 95. But in all other ones, Munich 95 is Ashkenaz one. But in all the ones, Munich 6, which is Sfaradi, other ones that are both Sfaradi and Ashkenazi, and the Yemenite one, and a Geniza fragment, all have a Tanya. So in this case, it really should be Vehat Tanya. since it's not a Mishnah. Okay, any case, it is a Tannaitic source. So did Abba Shaul really say you need both requirements in order to have to pay the fine? The Mishnah, the Tosefta says, Abba Shaul omer, עת שיש בו שווה פרוטה חייב בתשלומין, עת שאין בו שווה פרוטה אינו חייב בתשלומין. He says very clearly, if it's worth a perutah, you have to pay. If it's not worth a perutah, you don't have to pay. Okay, he doesn't say anything about kezait. They said back to him, the Chachamim say, Amru lo amarnu shaveh perutah ela le'inyan me'ila bilbad, אבל לתרומה אינו חייב עד שיהיה בו kazait. They say the only time you have a thing about perutah, meila. Meila means you steal something from the Bet HaMikdash, not terumah from a kohen, but rather you steal a wood or a pot or money, whatever, and that is stealing, and that's has to do with meila. But terumah, no, you're only chayav if it's a kazait. Okay, ומאיתה, כיוון שיש פה כזית, כיוון שיש פה כזית מבעלי תיובתא. Okay, kazait is the end of the words of the Braita, and now we analyze. If it was true that Abba Shaul needs both, then rather than say, ad sheyeh bo kazait, the sages should have said back to him, כיוון שיש פה kazait, right? Because he would agree, yes, because it has a kazait, but that's all you need. But they don't say that. They said, ad sheyeh bo kazait, which implies that Abba Shaul does not agree and doesn't require a kazait. So that, in fact, is a rejection of that possibility. That was Rav Papa suggested the possibility that Abba Shaul needs both in order to reconcile him with the previous Mishnah. So not only have we rejected Rav Papa, but Rav Papa even rejected himself. Rav Papa changed his mind about that. He was trying to give a solution to reconcile Abba Shaul with the Mishnah, but he recognized that it was not correct. Tanya. This pasuk is talking about me'ilah. Someone steals from the Bet HaMikdash and he does it bishogeg. Then he has to bring this offering. Parat lemezid, not if he does it on purpose. If I go and steal something from Bet HaMikdash on purpose, then I can't be atoned by giving a chatat. Okay. Now this is all from the Sifra. Now the Sifra asks, why do I need a pasuk to tell me this? That I don't have to bring a korban for me'ilah if I did it on purpose. Other mitzvot in general that have karet, which is a higher level punishment, and if I do it on purpose, I don't bring a korban. Me'ilah she'en bo karet, eno din shepataret hamezid. Me'ilah has a lesser punishment of mitah bidei shamayim. Mitah bidei shamayim is one step lower than karet. So since me'ilah is less stringent, so for sure I shouldn't have to bring a korban if I did me'ilah b'mezid. Okay, so but then the Sifra continues and says, no, not necessarily. Lo, ima marta b'shar mitzvot sheken lo chiyeh behen mitah. Other mitzvot don't have chiyuv mitah. Tomar b'me'ilah shechiyeh b'mitah. Me'ilah has a chiyuv mitah. Tamud lomar bishkaga perat mezid. That's why I need the pasuk to tell me that bishkaga only if I did it by mistake, not on purpose. Now you see that this logic is strange because it's going both ways. First we said, oh, karet is better. Karet is more stringent than mitah bidei shamayim, and now we say no, me'ilah has mitah bidei shamayim, so that's more stringent. Which is it? You can't have it both ways. So regarding that Sifra, we have these Amoraim that discuss it. These are fourth generation Amoraim. Remember, all this is to try to show that Rav Papa changed his mind. Okay, but it's going to take a little bit to get there. So Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak tells his colleague Chia bar Abin, "Hai Tanna Kamma alima le karet, ubasof alima le mitah." It's very strange. In the first half, he thinks karet is more stringent, and then he said mitah bidei shamayim is more stringent. So, can you explain this? Amar le hachika amar. Lo im amarta bishar mitzvot sheken lo chaya behen mitah befachot mikazait. We're more focusing on the punishment so much as the amount. It didn't say those words, but this is what he meant. That when it comes to me'ilah, then even less than the kezait, just a shaveh perutah, a person will be chayav. So you see, me'ilah is more stringent than most other prohibitions, which is kezait, and that's why the kal vachomer does not work, and that's why I need a pasuk to teach me that it's only I don't bring a korban if I did it on purpose. Okay, good. So that was his answer. V'amaleh Rav Nachman, who asked this question originally, said, "Tanuach datach she'enachta dati." Thank you. Your mind should be at rest because you made mind at rest. I was really upset and worried about the sifra. I couldn't figure it out, and now you gave me an answer. Thank you so much. Right? Peace be upon you. Amaleh, but Rav Chia didn't take the compliment. Amaleh, what rest do you have? I'm not at rest with my own answer because the Rabba v'Rab Sheshat shadu ben narga, right? Because these sages, a third generation, his teachers, they took an axe at my answer. They didn't like it at all, right? They rejected my answer. So you said you like it, but I myself am bothered because of the rejection. Okay, what did they not like about this answer? Man shemat le damar hizid b'meila b'mita rebihi. Okay, we're going to just do a few lines here just to get to the point about Rav Papa. So man shemat le damar hizid b'meila b'mita rebihi. Who says the opinion that if someone purposely steals from the Bet HaMikdash, that's chayav mita? It's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. How do we know that Tanya? Hizid b'meila Rabbi omer b'mita. Hachamim omerim be'azhara. Hachamim say no, it's only a warning, but which would be malkut, but it's not chayav mita. So this is the opinion of Rabbi. How does he know this? My tamad de Rabbi. Amar Rabbi Amhu. Gamar chet metirumah. Ma tirumah b'mita, af meila b'mita. He learns it from a Gezerah Shava that tirumah, if someone does it on purpose, is chayav bidei shamayim. So too, meila will be chayav bidei shamayim. Good. But once you have that Gezerah Shava, you could learn something else. Umina ma tirumah bekezait, af meila bekezait. So if you're going to learn from tirumah, you can also learn the amount. And so the amount for Terumah is kezait, right? That was the Chachamim said. And so Meila will also be kezait. And so there's the problem. This destroys the answer that we said before, because the answer that we said before by Rabbi Yohanan was assuming that yes, Meila is chayav mita b'dei shamayim, but it's chayav even less than a kezait. Right, and so that was the basis of his answer. But actually, we see here that Rabbi, who says that yes, it's chayav mita b'dei shamayim, he says he would also say it's kezait. So that reasoning doesn't work. In the end, matkif la Rav Papa. Rav Papa comes to save the day. This is a fifth generation after. And he says, wait, how do you know that Rabbi actually agree with Rabbanan? Maybe he actually agrees with Abba Shaul that the minimum amount is a perutah. Because after all, Abba Shaul says you have to pay the fine if you stole a sheveh perutah, even if it's less than a kezait. Oh, that's the moment we've been waiting for. Here, Rav Papa is the one that explains Abba Shaul and to say that you only need one, not both but either or. Right? So here you go. Rav Papa above was the one that tried to answer for Abba Shaul to say you need both in order to reconcile with the Mishnah. And yet here, he doesn't say that anymore. So you see that Rav Papa, Rav Papa must have changed his mind from that view. And so we conclude with that, and we see the minimum amounts, in fact, are two different opinions, and nobody says that Abba Shaul says need and or. It's either an olive size or a perutah, and this relates to the common theme running throughout the staff, which is that Terumah has this dual aspect, that it's both stealing monetarily from the Kohen, but also that you're taking something that's sacred and de-sanctifying it, which is the second reason and why you need this fine. Baruch Adonai Olam, Amen ve'amen.